Assalamu alaikum. This is your brother Mohammad Arshad, and today I want to talk about you. I want to talk about your fears. Now, fear is one of those big, paralyzing things. It's so important in your life. Why is that? It is because when it comes to your fear, it is something that stops you from your dreams. It stops you from achieving the things that you would love to achieve. It stops you from everything that you want. And it's one of those things that has its own power over you. It's a very powerful force. So I want to talk a little bit about fear. Now, the first thing I want to say to you about fear is that fear itself can be a very positive, good thing. I'll give you an example. Like imagine we're in this room, or I'm in this room now, and there's a lion behind me. If there's a lion behind me and I feel fear, that's actually a really good thing. Why is that? Because if I have fear, then I'm going to get up, I'm going to move out of the room and be like, I need to get out of here. But if I don't have any fear and I don't feel anything while the lion's here, what's going to happen? Well, the lion's going to eat me basically, right? And a nice big meal that it will have. But this is why fear, when done right, is actually something of a tool and something very useful and even a blessing from Allah. But the problem is that we don't actually live in the jungle, which is filled with snakes, and which is my biggest fear, and lions and tigers and all these man-eating things. We actually live in a very different environment. And so the kind of fears that our ancestors and everyone used to have, they're actually not real fears for us now. And this is why you see this massive emergence of fear in other parts of our lives, right? So, for example, you will see that people are very scared and fearful of others. We have this thing called FOPO now, right? You've heard of FOMO. FOPO is where you fear other people's opinions. So we have this thing where someone is scared of someone else's opinion. Someone is scared of judgment or being judged. Someone is scared of being misunderstood. Someone is scared of actually being rejected. So there's so many different things when it comes to fear that can affect you. So what I would say is that it's so important to remember that when it comes to fear, this is something that nowadays is usually something negative. And it's something that basically affects us in a negative way, and it stops us from reaching our goals, from achieving our dreams. And this is why I want to give you a specific formula, which is called the DART formula. And I want to help you to work your way through your fears. And the way we're going to do this is I want you to pick a specific fear. Okay. I want you to pick a specific fear that you have and think about that fear right now. And then I'm going to take you through a process which is going to help you to overcome that fear. So for me, for example, one of my biggest fears, if you know me really well, one of my biggest fears is actually snakes, right? Just the whole thing around snakes, it's been a massive fear for me. And it's been a fear for me for decades. Okay. And this is one of the things you need to understand about fear. It actually breeds on time. So if you have a fear, like you get scared of something now, and then you don't do anything about it, and it just basically grows over time. This is one of the things that happens with fear. So let's get straight into it. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want you to pick a specific fear that you have yourself. So for me, you need to do step one, which is define it. You need to define the fear. So for example, for me, I would say the fear is snakes, but I need to define it. What exactly is it that I'm scared of? Okay, what is it that my fear is of snakes specifically? Because a lot of times we say, oh yeah, I have a fear of snakes, but we just do it randomly and we just say, oh, it's just a fear of snakes. So whatever your fear is, you can type it in now, or you can actually say it. Whatever your fear is, you need to actually do it in detail. So for example, for me, my fear is that I'll be in a room like this. It's getting darker now. And as it gets darker, a snake, a big poisonous slimy snake, will sneak into this room, and then it'll just come out of nowhere, and it will basically come right in front of me, and I'll see it. Like, you know how it does that thing, like where it's just like showing up like that? It's gonna do that thing, and then it's basically gonna bite me, and it's gonna grab me, and it's gonna be poisonous, and it's gonna be like hard, and I can't get it off me. Like, this is my fear. So whatever your fear is, you have to take a moment to define the fear. And it's very important that you do this. So if you haven't done this already, I want you to write down and define it for yourself. What is the fear? Now, once you've done that, the second part of the DART formula is A. So A is for avoid. Okay. So now that you know what the fear is, the next step is for you to make a simple plan of how are you going to avoid this fear from ever becoming a reality. Okay. So you need to basically sit down and start thinking, right, when it comes to avoiding this, how could I do this? So for example, I might come up with a plan and I might say, right, how am I going to avoid ever having that snake situation. So number one, I might say I'm never going to go to a country with snakes. Okay. And this is ironic because I just spent 3 years living in Turkey, right? And now I live in Morocco and they all have snakes. But I might actually have that in there, that I'm not going to go to a country that has snakes. So this is one of my ways to avoid the fear. The other thing is I might say I might not go out in wild places. So you like there's no I wouldn't go to a jungle, for example, where there may be snakes. Another thing I might say is I won't go to the zoo, or I might not go to the snake house in the zoo, right? Another thing that I could do is I might say, right, to kind of avoid it, I'm going to make sure that I have other things in place where, like, I can't have snakes coming in. So, for example, my doors, they might have special locks or something like that. So the point is that once you've defined the fear, you need to then decide what exactly am I going to do to avoid the fear, and you come up with a plan for it. Then the next thing is the R of the formula. What does the R stand for? It stands for repair. Okay, repair. So now what we're going to do is first we defined what the fear is, then we made a plan to avoid the fear. Now we're going to assume, imagine, Allah protect us, that the fear actually happens and it becomes a reality. What would you do then? Okay, so for example, one of the things that might happen is I might do something like, in my plan, I might have said to myself, I'm going to buy some anti-venom. You know, you get anti-venoms where if you're stabbed by a snake, then you would just basically put the anti-venom in and that would save your life. So part of my plan, I might buy anti-venom. So I have to come up with a plan. Allah forbid, if I am actually attacked by a snake, what is the plan? Okay, so one plan might be, right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kick the snake, or I'm going to get rid of the snake, right? Second thing is I'm going to use the anti-venom on myself that I have. The third thing is I might call an ambulance. The fourth thing is I might call out to family or someone else. The fifth thing is I might get out of that area. The sixth thing is I might make dua. And then the next thing is maybe I'll say the shahada, right? So it's really like you want to get it into your head where, Allah forbid, if this fear actually came true, what would be the action plan if it happened? And this is called the repair plan. So, like I said, when it comes to your fears, you want to define what the fear is. You want to come up with a plan for avoiding the fear ever happening. But you also want to think, if the fear ever happens, then I need to have a way to repair the situation. And this is where the anti-venoms and the du'as and all these things come in. Okay. Now, the next step is actually T for trust. Okay. So now that you have a basic plan to avoid it, you have a basic plan to repair it, you need to think about this story. So a man, he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he was actually afraid of losing his camel. So when he was going places, he was saying, like, should I tie the camel up so it doesn't run away, or should I like just trust that Allah will like look after the camel? And the Prophet ﷺ said to him, tie the camel and trust in Allah. So in a way, this is exactly what we need to do with our fears. That when you have a fear, you want to make sure that you do everything possible to attack that fear. So that means defining the fear. It means coming up with a plan to avoid it. It means coming up with a plan to repair it. But then also, you need to make sure that you trust in Allah as well. And that's why the T in the DART formula is actually for you to put your trust in Allah. And the truth is that once you do this, the fear becomes irrelevant. And I'm not saying this just as like a willy-nilly thing. Yeah, it becomes irrelevant. What I'm saying to you is that this is something that we as Muslims, we submit to the qadr of Allah. So if it is that a snake is going to attack me and I've done everything possible and it still attacks me, then this is qadr Allah, and maybe there's something good in it. And I know it sounds crazy to say that because I shudder when I think about snakes, but even then, I think it's something important. And I'll tell you a real life story, right? Like, I moved into Morocco in this place not so long ago, a few months ago. And one of my friends here, he told me, he said, bro, I told him about my fear of snakes. He said, bro, we found a snake outside the compound, like just where I live, like literally just there, we found a snake. And then he showed me the video and I was like, I do not want to see this, right? But now, when I walk to the masjid, I'm walking to the masjid, like especially if it's dark, and I'm like looking at little parts of the road, like, is there a snake here? Right? And it's kind of paranoid and all of this stuff. But at the same time, I've kind of accepted it that, look, if I've put the fear there and I've defined it and I've put something in place and I've done all these actions, and after all of that, I've basically tied my camel and I'm going to put my trust in Allah. If it happens after that, then so be it. Maybe it's the qadr of Allah. Maybe it's something good for me. Maybe it's something that will be beneficial, inshallah. And so this is what I would say to you, that if you are in a situation where you have any fears, you need to do exactly this thing. And one of the things you need to do is remember that taking action, it really destroys fear. There was a really amazing book. It was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And this whole book, someone said that when I read the title of the book, I didn't need to read the book, right? And in it, they basically said that the fear is an emotion. The thing that overcomes it is taking action. So you imagine today, like imagine you're trying to ride a bike for the first time and you fall over and you hurt yourself. If you don't get back on that bike, it will affect you. So imagine you leave it for a day and you say, I'm not going to ride the bike because I hurt myself. Then day two, you're like, oh, I kind of feel scared to get on a bike. You know, as time increases, you will actually feel more fearful. So after 5 years of not riding a bike, you'll be like, no, I don't want to do it at all. Okay. But the thing that kills the fear is actually for you to take action. So when you fall off the bike, the same moment you want to get back onto the bike, or when you feel fear, you want to take action. Now, that doesn't mean that you do silly things. You just want to make sure that you take action. You put your trust in Allah. One of the ways to do it, this book, they also tell you in there that whenever you come up with a tough situation where you're feeling scared, you should say, I will handle it. I will handle it. And I started using this. Like when I felt fear of something, I said, I will handle it. And it really makes you feel calm. But then I started thinking, I'm thinking, the truth is, I can't actually handle it. Like I'm weak, I'm powerless. But Allah is all powerful. Allah is the one that can do anything. So rather than saying, I will handle it, I took this from the book and I said, you know what? Allah will handle it. And so now, whenever I'm in these situations where I feel fear, I would actually say to myself, don't worry. After I've taken the action, I'll be like, you know what? Allah will handle it. And just by saying Allah will handle it, I promise you, it will make you feel so much more easier. You still have to take action. You still have to do the things I mentioned. But when you do that and you put your trust in Allah, inshallah, you will feel much calmer and much better about the fear, inshallah. I hope this was helpful to you guys. I hope that it was something that was beneficial. And I pray that Allah makes it easy for you to basically overcome your fears and achieve the things that you dream of, achieve the things that you want to do. I know so many of you want to benefit the ummah, you want to fulfill your potential. And so may Allah make it easy for you to do that. Fear is one of the biggest blockers. So it's really, really important that you overcome that. And inshallah, I will see you on the next one. Jazakumullah khair.